all things Astros with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? And welcome to episode 41 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. That did not start out well. Maybe it's because of this foggy morning. I don't know, man, but that was almost tweaked right on beat one. I'm Jeff Balke, and my partner, who's looking mighty spry on this foggy early morning.
It's all
Jeff
a front.
Blum. You can find us on It's all a front. Fair enough. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and of course YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe. Keep up with us, and give us a follow. I Believe in Astros on Twitter. You can find me and Blummer pretty much everywhere. At Jeff Balke, Blummer's at Blummer27. Send us your comments and questions. We love seeing all of those and reading them. Oh, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, if you don't mind. I hate to plug it that way. But and if you drop us a review on there, we would also appreciate that very much. The overlords at Believe would really like it a lot, which is awesome. Also, we'd love to see your comments. For example, anybody want to pitch in on signing Carlos Correa to a rec league softball team?
Oh my gosh, dude! I think that
guy's
might
be where he ends up.
Yeah. Well, if he passes the physicals for the local Baytown Bears or whatever softball club you got going on.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. We're not sure if he's going to pass the physical, but we could sign him. We could at least negotiate. Get Scott Boras on the line. Real quick, a word for our sponsor. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season, including the NFL, which, if anyone would have placed a bet on the Texans scoring on a 2-point conversion to win and lose the first pick in the draft,
congratulations.
Well, you'd have won a lot of money. Let's just put it. Congratulations, Texans, on that complete and utter disaster. A bowl season, which, of course, Georgia just finished that off. Look, TCU, my goodness. I mean, Georgia, TCU, their team has families, man. Just murdered them. And esports, which I guess we'll get on to esports now since everything else is
in order to have an esports contract, you don't need to pass a physical.
That's it. Your wrists have to work, though, right? Isn't that part of it? Or is it just... I don't know.
If you have carpal tunnel, you might
I don't
be in
know
trouble.
enough about esports to... Yeah, exactly. That could be an issue. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. It features live betting, free contests, live scores on almost any sport or game imaginable. I wonder if they have the slap contest. Remember those?
Oh, dear God.
Slapping people? I wonder if they got those on there.
Those are vicious.
I might bet on that. The Slap Fest. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Not we, meaning Blummer and I, but BetOnline is the fastest. You don't want to send us... Well, you can send us money, but we're not going to bet on anything for you, so that's up to you. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. So before we get into anything, Blummer, good morning.
Good morning.
As everyone knows, you are the color broadcaster with Todd Kalas on the Astros TV broadcast, and I only bring that up because the Astros have announced that you will keep your job.
Oh, hey.
Congrats, my friend. Are you happy to be back? How are you feeling?
I
With
passed
the
my
fresh
physical.
New contract?
Yeah, there was an
Did
extensive...
they have to do like a throat test?
Yeah, it was an MRI, CT scan of my larynx and my esophagus, and all of the muscles are functioning and in the right place. I don't have any artificial stimulants, at least yet.
Excellent.
But it's all good. I am happy. It's a process, and it's like moving manhole covers over there at AT&T, but. It eventually got done, and obviously TK and I are happy to be here because I love my job, and in the easiest contract negotiation known to history in the history of man, they finally got it done. So yeah, I'm happy to be where I'm at. Very happy.
That's really great. And of course, everybody, you see on Twitter, like, it's obvious people wanted you guys back, the whole broadcasting team. And we don't want to be remiss and leave anybody out. I mean, everybody in that broadcasting team is strong. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I got goosebumps listening to some of the Spanish broadcasts, during the
Spanish
playoffs.
ones are good.
I mean, those guys have they really, they know what they're doing, right? So, I mean, everybody back, and it's really great. I mean, obviously on TV, you and TK and Julia have like a very special chemistry. It's very unique. And then, of course, Sparks and Ford are like a perfect duo on radio. So it's just really one of the best, I think, broadcast teams. And you and I have talked about this off the air, so this is not me like blowing, giving you like a nice pat on the back on the air. I've said this. I think you guys are one of the better broadcasting teams as a whole in sports. And so it's good to have you back because, let's be honest, who else are they going to put in there? I don't know what they would do, but I don't think it's not going to be better.
Shoot, now that you put it that way, I should have held out for a little bit longer and seen if they would have stepped up a little bit more than they did. But, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll give you my card later. I can be your agent next time.
Yeah, no, seriously. And, the best compliment I get is that, the chemistry is good and it's not false. You can't falsify that. It's got to be pure because you can definitely tell in some of the tones and when you're listening to broadcasts whether or not people like each other and how they interact with each other. But there's a pure enjoyment for TK, Julia, and myself to go on a broadcast and have some fun, talk about baseball. Obviously, we love our jobs. We're entertaining, but at the same time, Julia was over at the house yesterday for the national championship game, and we hung out with her and her husband. And it's not just on camera; it's off camera too. We're constantly talking, interacting, having each other over for football games or events or family events, birthdays, things like that. And one thing that Julia and I were talking about is that we are so grateful that TK is on our team because he is easily the most prepared play-by-play guy that we've listened to, worked with. He's unbelievable at what he does, and we make a joke because our producer will talk to Julie and I to get us ready for games. He doesn't talk to TK. He's like, TK's good. TK's fine. He'll drive this ship in the right direction. We'll be fine. So there's a certain comfort level with TK. We're very good at what we do, and we love it.
I think that's really important. Having somebody, driving the ship that knows what they're doing. Did Julie and her husband bring any of their 100 rescue dogs with them to your place to watch the national championship?
No, there's her husband has an affinity for one of our dogs, not the one that's screaming in the background, but the other one, the youngest one. Good grief. I'm sorry.
Hey, mine are going to do it any minute now, so don't
Catahoula
worry.
leopard dog. Yeah, we have a Catahoula leopard dog that has some serious energy. She's gorgeous, but Matt loves that dog.
That's awesome. Well, I highly approve. They are obviously very involved in the Houston Pets Alive thing. I am a big animal rescue person from going way back, so I'm a big support. I support the Houston Pets Alive organization. So hey, good for them. I mean, honestly, it's kind of cool. We should talk about this sometime about how the Astros organization has sort of become an animal rescue organization. I mean, they've rescued all the cats around Minute Maid, and Lance McCullers has all these animal things that he does. I mean, it's really kind of fascinating,
No, it is. And you know what? Just to compound on that fact and just, stroke the city of Houston, it's one of the most charitable cities I've ever seen and been around in my life. Oh. And then you add the pet, the pet aspect to it, and that SPCA building that's almost downtown that's absolutely incredible. Yeah, there's a certain charitable nature and philanthropist ideology down here that it overwhelms you at times because they want everybody to be comfortable. But the pet aspect is something that is extreme down here in Houston. But it's a lot of fun to see, an organization and everybody be like-minded in the sense that how important animals are in this world. But they've done a very good job, and Julia's really at the forefront of it. You talked about Lance McCullers Jr., but Julia, being around her and how much work she's put into that, she's done a great job at that.
Yeah, she sure has. So let's talk a little baseball here. Carlos Correa, we got to just say something because, now they're saying he might go back to the Twins. Like, I mean, have you ever seen anything like this before, Blummer? This has really got me flummoxed. I'm so confused by all of this. I mean, what do you make of this situation?
Well, there's so many different things to it. It's the leg injury, it's the physicals, and then it's the money, the years, the billions of dollars that are being thrown around this offseason. And then all of a sudden you get to the one guy where you expected who took a chance on himself, took a short-term deal with the Minnesota Twins, the COVID year, the lockout. There were so many strange things going on in that last free agent market last year. And then you fast forward, Carlos says, this is my pocket. There's Xander Bogaerts, there's Trey Turner, there's Dansby Swanson, and then there's me. And I thought Carlos Correa was the best option out there because he's a platinum glove defender. He's a middle-of-the-order guy. He's a leader in your clubhouse. He's not afraid to speak his mind. This guy, he is the total package, and he got a total package deal from the Giants. Poof, that disappeared because of the medicals. He immediately, what was it? It seemed like it was less than 48 hours. He gets a deal from the Mets where Steve Cohen's throwing around money like it's nothing. Yeah. And then poof, that's gone because of the medicals. And all of a sudden he's going back to the girl he left at the altar with the Minnesota Twins, who offered the sweetheart deal of having the opt-outs every year. And now who knows if he's negotiating a similar deal where, hey, 13 years, but I get an opt-out every year if I want it. I don't know what's going on. But for whatever reason, the Minnesota Twins are back in.
So weird.
And I read, I'm sure like you did, that talks have been accelerated with the Minnesota Twins. This is unbelievable.
It's just one of the most oddball situations. I mean, let's just say right now, it's a good thing this is playing out in sort of the deep, dark recesses of the offseason and not like right up in spring training or, that it's happening, now when there's really not much else to talk about,
True.
I mean, we've seen a few guys get signed here and there. I think we saw it was the Marlins signed a pitcher and a couple of guys get signed here and there. It's a time of year, but it's just so weird. Like the fact that he has gone through all of this when, like you said, and I agree with you 100%. I think out of all the superstar shortstops that were on the market, he was the best prospect for all of the reasons you listed. And it's just, I mean, I admittedly, there are probably some Astros haters out there who are having a lot of fun with Carlos Correa not getting this. But
unfortunately, yes.
But the truth of the matter, I know, right? But the thing about it is that Carlos is such a good dude. And he's going to make a lot of money, so nobody should feel sorry for this guy, But nevertheless, it is weird. And if I were Carlos Correa, though, I would say this much. Assuming he can keep his medicals together and he doesn't wind up with some sort of, career-threatening injury based on all this, if I'm Carlos Correa, whoever signs me, they're getting somebody who's going to be really pissed off, I mean, if this doesn't drive somebody to want to be great, not that he already isn't, this would certainly do it.
Yeah, and he kind of falls in that mold of the Astros who are used to the vitriol or used to that and almost use it as fuel. So I agree with you in the sense, going back to your initial comment, this is a guy, he's a lightning rod, he's polarizing, he stepped out in front, telling Bellinger to STFU. He is a guy who said, you know what? I'm pretty confident in my abilities, and I'm pretty confident that I don't like what you're saying, and I'm going to go out there and protect my guys and go out there and have this conversation. And he put himself out there. He was a part of the 2017 Houston Astros. We know what that brings with it. And he kind of embraced it and used it as fuel. And now you've got these contract negotiations and the question marks around his health. All that is, I agree with you, is going to fuel him to go out there and perform as good as well as he possibly can, if not better. And I think that he does now. He doesn't need the chip on his shoulder, but maybe this whole situation will add that chip to the shoulder and make him a better ball player. But it's such a unique situation all the way around for agents, for trainers, for medical staff, for organizations and owners to look at this whole situation. And I'm sure there's going to be a template in place after this that is this is setting precedent where they're going to have a template on how to work with these guys, because to be honest, having this situation happen with a position player is crazy to me, because usually it's a pitcher, with a tendon issue or a shoulder issue. How many times has that thing been stapled back together? How many Tommy Johns has this guy had? Nathan Eovaldi down in Texas can get a big old contract and say, yep, we're going to take that elbow and see what we can do with it. And it's had a couple of surgeries on it. So that's where, I think we're a little more curious.
Right.
What exactly are they looking at in these medicals that explains that they can't go out there and sign a guy with prolific talent like Carlos Correa? That's what I'm curious about.
I know. Is he like a medical miracle? Like, does he have a vestigial tail? Like, what is it that is wrong? Like, is he, what is the deal? I mean, it's just like, every time, is he like part lizard? Like, do we not? I mean, it's just,
do we
it's
find
so
some
weird
crazy
that we're
DNA
going
in there
through
that
all
we're
this.
like,
and like
whoa.
you said, right, exactly. It's like, is he an alien, or is it because the government needs him? It's like, I just find it. You're exactly right. This is exactly the kind of thing that you would see with a pitcher, and reasonably so. If a pitcher has had some issues, or if they find something in the shoulder, that's a realistic. Not only is that threaten a player's career, but it also threatens their ability to perform well. Like pitchers sometimes don't recover from those types of things, right?
Yeah.
But like a lower leg injury for a guy like Carlos Correa that happened in 2014 and now we're in 2022, like the fact that we are having this conversation is sort of disturbing, that we would have this conversation, given the fact that, this is the kind of conversation you have with somebody who's like has a degenerative bone condition or something, or suddenly they found out he has ALS. It's weird. It's very, very weird. I'm going to be very curious to see how the whole thing plays out. Like I said, I think he's going to be pissed. I think he's going to have a good season next year. Mm-hmm. And I just, hey, just keep him away from the Astros. The Twins, okay. The Twins aren't probably going anywhere, but just generally keeping away from the Astros. But speaking of contracts, I read something today, and I was curious to get your take on it. They are getting ready to, for the first time in baseball history, they're going to have a union representation for minor league players, which I think is great. These are eventually, many of them are eventually going to be major league players, but not all of them. And in fact, I think I read somewhere that it was only about something like 10% of minor league players would spend like reasonable amounts of time in the major leagues over their careers. How do you view this as a former player, somebody who, I'm sure had to go through the system yourself, that these guys are negotiating because they want like better transportation, they want better hotels, they want, better, and obviously baseball pays for some of their housing, and you've got guys living like 4 to an apartment and stuff like that. It's like it's like a frat a lot of times down there. How do you view this, Blummer? Like, what do you think of the positive negatives here?
Well, obviously a lot has changed from back in my day, so there's a lot of things that have evolved. And, the expectation for ball players 10, 15 years ago was, I'm going to grind in the minor leagues, get my at-bats, and get my innings in, and I'm going to get to the big leagues if that's the path for me. And if I can stay healthy enough, long enough, and perform well enough, I will be in the big leagues. And I'll look back at my minor league career and say it was worth it. But there's a lot of guys out there that don't get the opportunity to get to the big leagues, and you sit there and go, well, I just toiled and made, $1,500 a month to $5,000 a month, and I've got nothing to show for it except now I put on my resume I'm 29 years old and I've been playing a sport, and how do I get a job kind of thing. So it's been tough, but it also 10, 15 years ago you had two low A teams, you had two high A teams, you had a double A, triple A, and then you had extended spring, you had Dominican summer leagues, you had Arizona leagues. So there were a lot of players out there. So there was just a numerous amount of guys. Now, with the way it's been set up, and I think a lot of this has to do with the timing of the situation, because they've restructured the minor league system. So a lot of these organizations have really trimmed a ton of fat off of these minor league systems. So now you're not trying to just sign anybody you can to fill out a minor league roster. You actually have an idea of who you want to place in AA, AAA. AAA is no longer a holding ground for some of these salty vets who have a cup of coffee who might fill in later. These are prospects now. Everybody at every level is a prospect.
Right.
And I think that now, with knowing that, is that the resources are maybe a little more plentiful because you don't have as many guys in the minor leagues. And so it's lent itself to the opportunity for minor league guys to go, hey, we're underrepresented. We need a little bit more of your resources to be able to compete at a high level. And my idea is these minor league guys are an investment. This is the future of your ball club. So if you can represent them and if you can present them as an investment to these organizations, maybe the organization will be a little more conducive to the environment and enhancing it. I know that a lot of these stadiums are getting retrofitted for gyms, for batting cages, for bullpens, for technology to help these guys become better athletes, to become better ball players, to make your baseball team that much better. And I think now, too, with the draft going on and realizing how, slot money and how much money is being invested in these guys, you just don't want to fire them off into Butte, Montana and say, hey, if you want to get out of this get out of this situation, play better. Now you're going, okay, I got to make this situation better so that this player can play better. And I think that's where the mentality's at right now. So I hope it moves in the right direction. Obviously, there's going to be limitations because you're not that quote unquote big leaguer yet. And there's got to be some incentive to play better. Mm-hmm. But I think if you make that environment better, it's going to make the product better. And these guys are going to increase their opportunities to become better ball players and help these organizations.
Yeah, I think that's all excellent information, and I agree with you 100% about how the minor leagues have changed. Although, why you got to take a dump on Butte, Montana?
Man, I almost did. You hear that? Yeah. Well, I'm just, it's crazy. Some of these ballparks,
Butte,
I remember.
Montana.
Yeah, but there was a play I remember vividly in my first professional season. I was playing in the New York Penn League for the Burlington, Vermont Expos, and we went through Auburn, New York, and it was the Auburn Astros, and we showered. Man, technically we cleansed ourselves in a room that had basically fire, like hoses dangling from the roof of the ceiling of the place, but there were pallets on top of dirt. So if you didn't have shower shoes, you were walking on wood pallets to shower off. So, that's part of the idea is, yes, we want a little bit better pay, but we also need some decent facilities. I mean, some of these places we went through, I wouldn't even put, I was shocked that they allowed this. There was no health commission, making sure that these were facilities that you could actually house human beings in. But it was just the nature of the beast. I knew going in it was going to be crap situations unless I played better. So, that's how it was back then. But, now these guys have better opportunities, and obviously the money's being allocated a little bit more appropriately to make these stadiums nice and make them nice for the fans too. There's a good product out there in a lot of these minor league cities.
Yeah. I got to tell you, the story about fire hoses dangling over wood pallets is going to haunt my dreams. Like, it sounds like something out of a horror film. My God.
You get guys that would...
Is that the worst you ever saw when you were...
Oh, yeah. Hands down. Hands down. I mean, until I got to Wrigley Field and I realized that it was barely bigger than, the theater room in my house. And, I got to know a lot of guys intimately in that clubhouse in Wrigley Field for all the wrong reasons.
Dude, that's, I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but I have a couple of friends. My friend Andrew Dansby, who writes for the Chronicle, and Craig Lavati, used to write for the Press. We like to exchange stories about our horrible locker room experiences, and we're not athletes, right? Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine the tragedies that occur on a regular basis inside professional sports locker rooms. God knows I've seen my fair share of naked old men shaving their arms at the sink for no reason whatsoever. So I can sympathize. It's a really it's interesting perspective, Blum, on the players, though. I do think it's important that I'm kind of surprised they haven't had a union up until now. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of control and all that, but considering that these are, like you said, they're trying to really slim this down and make this a way to deliver prospects, not just, hey, we're going to have these minor league teams and maybe a few of these guys. Why wouldn't you want to make it more efficient? I feel like the NBA has done a really good job with that with their G League teams, where most of those guys bounce back and forth all the time. They have two-way players that they can send back and forth. And they've done a good job of using it as a training ground for young players, right? Obviously, in baseball, there's a lot more players, so it's a little bit different. But it seems like they would want to make it more efficient.
Yeah, and, it's also interesting too with with them slimming down these minor league systems. They're trying to enhance, because you got to think about what if I'm an 18-year-old coming out of high school and I'm a blue chipper, I'm a top 10 pick or a top 3-round pick, and I've got the Tampa Bay Rays coming at me with saying I'm going to be their number 1 pick this year. Guess who they're competing with? They're competing with an SEC school that has just, or some of these Pac-12 schools or the ACC that have these just glorious locker rooms. They travel on chartered flights to all of these games that they're going to. They've got NIL money. There's serious competition to try and peel that 18-year-old away, not just with the money, but with the situation they're being put into. I know if you want to go to the University of Arkansas, you're going to have a recliner, and you're going to have video games. You're going to have meals sessions. I mean, it's remarkable what the college game has done to try and compete with some of this first round pick money to go to the college ranks. So now now on the professional baseball side, you've got to look at it and go, whew, okay, we got to pay them. We got to make it worth their while to come here and play for us. And we got to tell them that we're actually investing on them to get better, because some of the technology I know in collegiate baseball, especially Division I, they're competing with some of the TrackMan, Hawkeye, and all of the other technologies that are out there to enhance their ability to go play the game. So you got to keep up with them.
Well, not only that, but let's be honest. I mean, you can either go stay in a crappy 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other dudes who you don't know and who probably smell really bad most of the time, or you can go to a beautiful college campus filled with co-eds. Like, what would you rather do? I mean, it's a real tough decision. I got to tell you. No, you're right, Blummer. That's 100% right, and I think I wonder if baseball is going to have to allocate a little bit more money for these minor league teams. I mean, look, they have to try and make a living too, and they do get, obviously, Major League Baseball gets a cut of their revenue. It's going to be an interesting negotiation to see what happens, because these minor league teams are not owned by like billionaires. It's not, we're not talking about Jim Crane and guys like that own these minor league teams. It'll be really interesting. But since we are in the middle of the off season, I had a question for you. It came up. A couple of people have asked me this, and I told them I would ask you about it. J.J. Watt retired here this week. The end of an incredible career for him. I wondered, and my father-in-law actually brought this up for me. What is the most difficult thing to leave behind when you're a player and you're making a decision to retire? I'm sure, obviously, it's different for everybody, but I know lots of guys talk about the camaraderie and all of that. Some guys like to travel a lot. I mean, you obviously get to go a lot of places and stay in a lot of nice hotels and, travel first class. What do you, at least for you, what was hardest for you to leave behind when you did finally make the decision to call it quits? There's a couple of things. Obviously, the clubhouse atmosphere is unique in sports, just because you do have that camaraderie. Granted, there's going to be a couple of bad apples that you don't get along with, but for the most part, a majority, I would say 98% of your career, you're playing with guys that you enjoy. And if you're all pushing in the same direction, you're having great seasons. There's a certain enjoyment and kinship in knowing that you're playing at
at an elite level. And I think one of the things for me when, retirement came about, I went, I'm no longer a ball player. I'm no longer one of the elite. I'm going right back into the GP, the general public, and I'm just going to be a guy again. And that's tough for some guys. And then the competitive nature. How am I going to feed that competitive nature? A lot of these guys have an issue, with unplugging themselves because you go so hard for so long, and then it's such an abrupt stop to things. And you're at the end of your career, if you've played well, you're in your mid to late 30s. But if you didn't play well, you're in your early 30s. It's like there's a huge chunk of life left after that. So you're trying to fill those voids. But for me personally, the thing that I miss the most is running onto that field. There is nothing like knowing that you are the only show in town and that they have built this coliseum, this structure that holds 40 to 50,000 people, and they are above you, staring down at you. It's not the same, but it's similar to the movie Gladiator when they just kind of pan around. Russell Crowe, and he's just looking around, and you just see the fervent, atmosphere just circling around that gladiator as you're out there. And it's kind of a crude representation because obviously it's not life or death, but it's the same situation where people are just enthralled, waiting to see what you're going to do next. And I miss that anticipation of what's going to happen when that ball's put in play. What's going to happen when that ball comes out of the pitcher's hand? That anticipation, that's what I probably miss the most. And it's not the adoration, because I miss the boos just as much as I miss the cheers. It's the environments and knowing that you're playing on one of the most pristine surfaces on earth that was manicured for me to go out there and play the game of baseball. That's what I miss most. And I also miss looking over my left shoulder and seeing, a guy like Adam Everett, or looking across the diamond and realizing I'm throwing the ball to Jeff Bagwell. Those are the things that I miss, being on that field and playing in the moment with those guys.
Yeah, and I imagine that's hard to replicate. It's a unique circumstance because guys that, if you're in any unique circumstance where the public is involved in whether you're an artist or a musician or whatever, you can still kind of replicate that even if you're not really famous, right? You can still perform and you can still do things like that. But when you leave sports, you kind of have to leave sports. I mean, it's not like, you're not going to get the same thrill by going out and throwing the ball in the backyard or, going to, hitting in the batting cage. When's the last time you took a swing?
Oh, legit? That's easy. Legit swing. I think it was 2019 when they were still doing the Astros Legends Week, and they had the home run derby for Legends guys. So I think it was 2019 where I legit took a swing and was trying to hit him out of the ballpark at Minute Maid Park. But that was the last time I took an actual physical swing with some authority. I only had three or five or something like that. Yeah. I was just, I think I was just a show pony at the time. I think Brian Bogusevic and Luke Scott went out there and just started dropping haymakers into the second tank. And I was like, yeah, those guys are good. They have fun, boys. I'm going to be over here hanging out with Steve Sparks commentating, Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome though. It must be cool to be able to hit a ball out of a ballpark. Do you think you can hit one out right now? I'm sure
I would need a good week. I would need a good week of getting ready to go do that, and I would need a very light aluminum bat. There's certain
man, there's nothing wrong with the ping.
Well, there's certain things in life, because we've all been to the local gym and stood at the 3-point line and fired up a shot and heard it swish and that sensation. Like, there's certain things in sports you want to do. It's like you want to form tackle a guy for a sack. You want to catch an interception, run it back. You want to slam dunk. But hitting a home run, there is no. I've talked to guys that have hit 400, 500 home runs, and every one, and then myself who hit a couple, it's like every guy is like, there's no better feeling than hitting a home run. I mean, the connection and the purity off the bat, watching in anticipation as that ball flies, and then see it land in the seats and realize that you get to take a luxurious, casual stroll around the bases after doing that. There's no better feeling than hitting a home run in the big leagues.
Yeah, that's the thing that to me is what's cool about it is the casual stroll around the bases. I mean, there's no greater flex than the stroll around the bases. I mean, in any sport, there's not. I mean, you can obviously have celebrations in the NFL and whatever else, but there's nothing cooler than the bat flip and just a nice little truck, just like trucking around, like just jogging around the bases nonchalantly. And honestly, what always gets me too is like, I think out of all of the last minute heroics, the walk-off home run has got to be the greatest.
Yeah.
Last second shot in basketball is incredible. It's incredible and it's super fun to watch. But in basketball, to me, it has to be more than just one shot. Like the Tracy McGrady, like 13 points in 35 seconds, whatever. Yeah. That's a different, that was beyond incredible, right? But the walk-off home run, it's magic. It's pure magic because once somebody hits it, that's the other thing too about the great thing about the home run is when somebody hits it, there's that second where it's like, is it? Like you're for a second, you're not 100% sure, and then you are. It's just there's so much about it that's really just fantastic.
Yeah, are you telling me you don't replay the scene from The Natural when he hits that final home run and just the music and the theatrics and the time and that's how every home run's hit, right? It's just the anticipation of and all the music playing in the background and the pageantry and the fireworks, But that's how every walk-off home run should be because that's the finality of it. And you again, it's not like you struck out the last hitter of the game and you high-five the catcher. It's a majestic blast. It lands in the seats, and then everybody in the stadium waits for you to get to home plate, and then you start bouncing. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty damn cool. No doubt about it. All right, one quick thing as we get we're a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting, which is incredible. So spring training is coming. When do you normally go down as a broadcaster? When do you typically head down there? I know that since you're a TV guy, you're not doing every game, obviously some towards the end. But do you go down there regularly, like sort of early on, or do you wait until you're going to broadcast games? What's your typical schedule when it comes to spring training?
I'll usually get down there a day early, just so that I can make sure that the next day, because these are all day games, in spring training. So the scheduling's a little bit different, but I'll try and get there, for a 1:00 game. We'll usually get there about 8 or 9 in the morning so that we can go on the backfield, talk to Dusty a little bit before they start working out and start going through their fundamentals and whatever they have for that day before they go play. And that's always the interesting thing too in spring training is that you basically have a full practice from 9 to 11, and then you get a couple hours off, and then you go play the ball game. And that's where you get to kind of go out there and kind of be seen, reconnect with guys, catch up with them, and then when they take batting practice, linger around the cage, talk to them, how was your off season, what were you working on, and things like that. But spring training for us is really an opportunity to reconnect with a lot of these guys. And then with some of these rookie guys that get invites to camp, it's your first opportunity to actually get eyes on them instead of watching video from the Space Cowboys or from Corpus Christi. You get to go, you've heard enough about them. Now you get to see them, talk to them, watch how they move in person, which kind of explains a lot and really helps my job putting my eyes on those guys to create an impression on how I want to speak about them when they're playing. But that's usually typically how it works. And in spring training, it always opens up a unique opportunity, not just to call TV games for AT&T, which we do, but we don't do all the games. But I'll go down there and call a couple of radio games and sit in for Steve Sparks, sit in for Robert Ford, and give them a little bit of a break, which opens itself to another opportunity in another medium and work with Robert and work with Steve Sparks, and have some fun that way. But I'll usually go down for about a week. Even if we're only calling 3 or 4 games, I'll be down there for 7 days for 3-4 games.
How many games? Do you know how many games you guys are calling this season on TV?
Nothing has been nothing has been confirmed, but it's usually between 8 to 10 games. And this season's going to be a little bit different just because of the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, is going to be being played. I think there's a potential. Tentatively, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up and then let them down, but there's tentatively a possible opportunity of Omar Lopez, the first base coach for the Houston Astros, phenomenal human being, great baseball coach, who is managing Team Venezuela. And I think there's an opportunity for us to possibly, tentatively, hopefully broadcast a Team Venezuela versus the Houston Astros in some way, shape, or form. And that would be a lot of fun because obviously Jose Altuve and some of the other Venezuelans that are around the league playing for Omar Lopez and Team Venezuela could open itself up for a lot of fun for a broadcast. So there's a potential for that. And then obviously you want to broadcast early in spring, broadcast late in spring, and then game on for the regular season.
Absolutely. I just out of curiosity with those games like that, when you're broadcasting, I know the World Baseball Classic. You've worked around them before. How do you think it impacts the team? I mean, do you think because we are going to, I think it takes like about 2 weeks of spring training before I think that's about how much it covers. Maybe a week and a half, 10 days of spring training before the players get back. Do you think that impacts guys negatively at all, or do you think it's a good thing?
I think it's a good thing because there's actually a lot of enthusiasm by players representing their countries, and I love that part of it. And baseball has become such a diverse sport. Obviously, there could be more diversity in the game, but there's such a strong Asian contingent, such a strong Latin contingent. And then you start to take the Latin guys and separate them into Venezuela, Dominican, Puerto Rican, and then you get to see that enthusiasm that they have playing and representing their countries. And then obviously here stateside, you have some great guys. Even Australia has some pretty good ball clubs. And you start to see the game of baseball expand. And I think guys really enjoy that. They enjoy representing. But I also think that it allows the opportunity for guys who maybe on the fringes get the chance to be on the big stage and represent and play some really competitive baseball. I like the fact that they do it in spring training because it's not a regular season injury issue. It's still going to be competitive, but it's in spring training where you're kind of preparing for the regular season. And I like the idea of having that in spring training. So if there is a tweak or an injury, you don't do it and lose time in the regular season. Hopefully it's just an injury that you can recuperate from and be ready for the regular season, because obviously there's some issues with health. You want to make sure you're ready for the actual paying job, but at the same time, I think Major League Baseball is doing a good job of allowing these guys in spring training to go play for their countries. I think it's a great thing for the game. I think it's a great thing for these players, and I think the timing of it is actually relatively good for the game, because spring training can get a little monotonous. And then you throw the WBC in the middle of it, and all of a sudden everybody's like perked up, their ears are up, and they're like, "Oh, hey man, look at did you see that game?" Right. So I like it.
I think it's good too because it does overlap just a little bit. So if it's overlapping with spring training, it's kind of like part of spring training for the players who are doing it. And most of the guys who are playing in these things are, professionals who've been around. I mean, Jose Altuve knows how to get himself ready for a season. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because Altuve doesn't always start the season very well. So hopefully maybe this will jumpstart him this year. All right, thanks everybody for joining us today. Blummer, any final thoughts before you head out for the? Looks like the fog is cleared. You could get 18 holes in today if you wanted.
Yeah, there's a window. This week I've been crazy busy because there's a unique opportunity actually happening with AT&T Sports that I'm excited about. So make sure you're following me on social media at Blummer27, both on Twitter and Instagram, because we're trying to put together some shows that will be very interesting. And then you also have the Astros Caravan coming up next week. You have the Astros Fan Fest coming up. So now that the contract is signed, we can start to cement some of these opportunities and appearances, which means that the season is coming up very quickly, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We're obviously everybody's thrilled to have you back. Me personally, I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
We're gonna have it's gonna be a fun season coming up for sure, and we will be back on this podcast later this week, brought to you by Bet Online. Huge thanks to listeners and viewers all over the world. You guys are awesome. Keep liking and subscribing. Keep giving us them 5 stars on Apple Podcast to make us happy and please our overlords. We are super thankful for all of you guys, and so keep it coming. Just 78 days to opening day, everybody. So get it ready. Get yourself prepared. Do what you need to. Get lots of stretching. Drink a lot of fluids. And we'll talk to you soon. Go Astros.